Welcome to another edition of Municipal Focus. My name is Kevin Tocci. I will be your host for the next 30 minutes, and as you've come to expect from a program like this, what we try to do is use this as a vehicle to get out information as to issues or items or topics that are going on. Some of the biggest conversations are what's going on with town government, especially when you get town meetings that are coming up. Could be a special town meeting. This is a good program to be able to kind of discuss it with the individuals who are in the know. We are fortunate enough, we got coming up on February 5th, the town of Hanson is having a special town meeting at the Hanson Middle School. It's at 7:30 p.m. Quorum, 100, so I know there's at least 100 people watching this right now. And the idea is just to speak with the chairman of the Board of Selectmen, Jim McGahan, who is to my left. Jim.
Thank you, Kevin.
Welcome back. And Mr. Mike McCue making his debut here on Municipal Focus, the town administrator, sir.
Thank you, Kev. Good to be here.
Good to have you here. And so we're here to talk about the special town meeting, and the big conversation is to talk a little bit about the warrant and some of the articles. And I know that there is a kind of a cornerstone. There's a big article that's on there, but there are other ones as well. As once you open up the warrant and you go, okay, we have our mindset for these key items, but usually there's a couple. You'll have a department that'll say, you know, we might need to we need some extra money for this fiscal year. Can we appropriate that and stuff like that? So we'll start off with you guys. Are you ready for this big town meeting?
I believe
Mike?
that we are, and you bring up a good point, Kev. That there is a cornerstone article on this warrant. However, when we came to the conclusion that we needed to have a town meeting to address this particular issue, we did. I spoke with several of the departments, and I spoke with the town accountant in particular to see if there was any other items to be addressed, to take advantage of the fact that we were calling the meeting and hopefully having the quorum and spending the money as well to have the meeting. So we did find a couple additional things to, they're basically house cleaning, but as you mentioned, the real driver in this is Article 1, which deals with the transition from the Maquan School to Indian Head and some other things going on at the high school.
Yeah, we should probably talk about, because the town of Whitman is also going to be holding their own special town meeting in March. Part of it is one issue in regards to recreational marijuana, but also to appropriate monies because they have an equal share. Well, they have a 60% share in a district program, and that is the pre-K program, which is going to be moved. So talk to me about that. And you have other classes that are being moved from
Special
the Maquan.
ed.
Yeah,
special ed. Some of the special ed courses, special ed classes are moving to the Duval School, and the high school has a number of significant changes to accommodate some of the preschools that are going to be there. Kudos to Ruth and the school committee and members who put that together, because I really think it's going to be a great way for students at the high school who want to get into teaching or maybe some sort of child service care of whatever to take part of some of those services in practice. Forgive me, and maybe with the kids at the school. So, but the getting down to the numbers, if you will, Kevin, we've got approximately $189,901.88. Good numbers, huh? To do these changes to the high school, and many of them include new changes to like the bathrooms or what have you. We got an itemized list, right? We know what's going on. One of the most expensive ways, I think, is the access way that they're looking to put into the high school, direct access for the kids. And I know that there's some parents out there who may be concerned, but about mixing kids up like that. But I think the district, from what I've seen, has taken precautions to make sure that all safeguards will be in place to make sure that the kids are safe on either side of the fence or whatever. And I think these changes are well needed. I think they're going to be, it's going to be an exciting time for Hanson and Whitman, but more so Hanson because we are closing a major school.
Well, what happens once the Maquan is closed?
Well, actually, we have formed a reuse committee, which consists of Selectman Kemet, myself, and 3 members at large. In addition, we have the participation of Robert Hayes, the school committee chairman, and Ernie Sandlin, who is the facilities director of the district. We have had 2 meetings thus far. The first of which was basically a tour for those on the committee that were not familiar with the particulars in the school, and unfortunately some of the shortcomings of the school right now. And we had an additional meeting just last week in which we talked with a professional appraiser to get some ideas to kind of get a jumping off point as to the viability of perhaps selling the school, perhaps renting the school, perhaps donating the school, or, unfortunately, perhaps the ultimatum would be removing the school in its entirety. We have not come to any decisions yet. Obviously, we're very early in the process. One of the very interesting concepts that was raised actually prior to this particular committee sitting and meeting is the possibility of the Housing Authority being able to take over some or all of it and increase the affordable and senior housing roles in the town of Hanson. And we're investigating that, whether that works or not. Obviously, it's going to take some time. It's going to take an awful lot of money. And rest assured, if that was to happen, it would not be money that would be coming from the townspeople of Hanson. It would be money that the Housing Authority would be getting through the state or other granting sort of vehicles. But so we are being very, very methodical. It's obviously a major decision as to what to do with that building, a building that was a part of an awful lot of people's lives, and we want to make sure that we make the right decisions going forward.
Kevin, could I interject?
Please do.
I want to make clear on what I said before. The $189,000 was just the changes to the high school. The total amount of the article is $555,095.13. I don't want people to get confused. The $365,000, that's the much of what we're talking about, is moving the classrooms from Maquan to either Indian Head, which is kindergarten through grade 2.
Yes.
And then, so what will happen is we'll have kindergarten, grades 1, 2, and 3, and 4 at Indian Head. And then what will happen up at we're moving grade 5 from Indian Head up into the middle school. And that's also part of that cost, along with the programs that we talk about. Grade 5 will move up into the middle school, so it'll be grades 5, 6, 7, and 8, right?
I believe so.
Right? That's
yeah.
it. Yep, 5, 6, 7, and 8, yeah.
Okay.
So I just want to make it clear that the entire amount of the article is for $555,095.13, which is Hanson's share. Okay?
40%.
Yes, 40%.
40%.
I don't know if the other people are interested, but the Whitman share is supposed to be a total of $282,725.62.
Right, with the whole program.
Yes, with the whole program.
Knowing that you gentlemen have done research, I don't know the history behind the Maquan School and the decisions that are going to be made in the future, but if you did decide to tear it down or to sell it, where does it stand in regards to any monies that the state might have offered up when the school was initially put up? And is there any concern about any kind of clawback or any kind of worries that you might have to compensate the state?
Nothing that we're aware of. I believe that we've looked at all of those sorts. We've pretty much looked at all of the pros and cons.
Sure.
And nothing like that came to any of our attention. I think it's also important to note, as the chairman mentioned, the $555,000. We will be asking for that to be transferred from free cash. So it's no additional money on the tax rolls. It's no additional money that's going to be asked for from the residents of Hanson. It's money that we call free cash, which is basically monies that have not been expended from the previous year. So we're in a very fortunate situation. We may not be in that sort of a situation next year in terms of how much money we have currently in this fiscal year. It's quite a lot. It's actually an unusually high amount. So it affords us the opportunity of just paying it off in a one-time lump, as opposed to, because we played back and forth with borrowing it, but in consultations with our accountant, his recommendation, and we concurred with it, is to just spend the money now. We've got the money, one-time cost, and be done with it.
Right. That's a great point. Absolutely. I'm proud of that fact that we've had that money saved in order to do something like this without hitting people up on taxes.
But isn't that what the stabilization fund is for? Is it stabilization or free cash?
It's free cash.
Okay,
yeah.
all right. So I want to make sure we make the distinction because folks might get confused.
You're right.
And stabilization is an account that we try to put, and every town tries to put some money aside, and that's more of a rainy day account for really extreme, unexpected expenses or incidents. Generally, the state recommends, I believe it's either 5 or 10% of the average budget of a town be put aside. Not only is that something that's encouraged by the state, but it also helps us with our bond rating if and when we go out to do borrowing. The more money we've been able to put aside, the more fiscally solvent, the more fiscally prudent the town appears to be, and gives a lot more assurances to lenders, to bonding agencies, and that's when your rates, your rating goes up from single A to double A and so on and so forth.
Now, my initial question, and you may have already answered it, Jim, is that the pre-K going to the high school, is that just a staging area, or is that going to be the permanent home for that program?
Well, of course, both towns have to vote and agree to the changes. So if one votes yes and the other votes no, then most likely it's going to go back to the drawing board, to the school committee to figure out where they're going to put the preschoolers.
Right.
But let's go into the assumption that the votes go forward. My understanding is that's where the preschoolers will be held. That's where the classes will be held and so forth. So that will be the place for, at this time anyways, and for the preschoolers to go to.
So how closely are you going to be watching Whitman's town meeting when they sit down and discuss this as one of their articles? I'm sure you're going to be wondering, texting with somebody that in the know who's in town meeting.
I was originally concerned because I think the plan overall was to try to get the town meeting for Whitman at the same time as Hanson's, but I understand the reasons why they couldn't do this because of logistics with they were trying to line up with the marijuana vote and so forth. But my real concerns at that time too were making sure that they didn't interfere with the progress of the school district and making sure that we could still stay to the plan, which was next September. All these changes are supposed to be complete, and we're starting. All the kids are starting to where they're supposed to go, the new schools and so forth. So me personally, I'll be watching it very closely. I may even go. I think, because I would like to just sit in among the crowd in the visiting area and hear what the people have to say. I think this is an important step.
And I think it's like really any town meeting between the two towns that involve anything of significance in the district. Each town, both towns need each other, and both towns need to be supportive, hopefully, of a joint vision of how the district is going forward, whether that be a one-time event like this or it be the annual budget. So to follow up on what the chairman said, in terms of the timing of the two town meetings, I believe Whitman had its first special town meeting in quite some time, not that long ago, and now is going to have a second. So that's a very unusual situation for Whitman.
Yep.
And for them to have a third, it was understandable that that was something they were hesitant to do, especially since they had another one lined up. But as far as our vote, again, supposing or assuming that it'd be a positive vote on Monday, the way the district has lined things up is they're going to do the work that needs to be done on Hanson schools when the Hanson money is freed up. When Whitman goes forward and hopefully votes in the positive for their portion, then the changes to the schools that are technically Whitman schools will take place. So the timing is okay. It's really the fact that the town meetings are not taking place at the same time is not going to foul up the schedule that the district has put together.
I mean, that's a great point too, Kevin. This is important to know because if Hanson votes yes, we will move forward with those changes to the schools. Obviously, it puts the pre-K up for what's going to happen if it was voted no. But those changes if it's voted yes. So the question is well, what happens if Hanson votes no and Whitman votes yes?
What's the contingency plan?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So I do anticipate that most people in the town of Hanson will vote yes. They'll move forward with this. I think the general consensus out there is positive. They feel that this is the right direction. Sure. We support our schools. We support the district and the decision as well. Plus, we've seen what the repairs would be to McCue. That would be huge. To bring them up to speed, right? My capital improvement plan is...
It's quite exorbitant, and you get into a situation where, unfortunately, you may be spending good money after bad.
Right.
And again, as I touched upon earlier, I know it's probably an emotional thing for the vast majority of people in Hanson who matriculated through that particular school. But the rough figures that we received from the school district in terms of what we would have to expend, and this is Hanson only, what we would have to expend over the next 3 years is around $5 million. There are some significant shortcomings, unfortunately, in that aging building.
And is it worth at least saying is that you can only spend a certain amount of whatever the assessed value of the building is before you have to bring it up to 100% code, right?
That's correct.
And that threshold, that's right.
And the state does watch that, and in terms of us trying to piecemeal it so we don't hit that percentage, they call that, I think, it's not technically called bid shopping, but it's a term in that that, and they do pay attention to that, and we could run afoul if we tried to do something like that, and the costs would be far in excess of the figure that I just mentioned if we would have to bring it up to ADA codes and sprinkling codes and other things.
And we made improvements to that school too, Kevin. I don't know if you remember in the past, but we fixed the roof recently last year, right, Mike?
Yes.
And we made changes to some of the asbestos issues that we had with the ceiling, with the floor tiles and so forth. Some of the pipe work, I believe, down at it was also done. So we tried addressing some of these items that were a priority to the school, especially a leaky roof, right? Obviously. So some people might say, well, you wasted that money through there, but honestly, you really haven't, because the people who lived in that building and went there day to day needed to go into a dry, clean place, and fixing the roof was a responsibility that had to have been done.
Right. What I would ask you next would be what are the facts to this situation? And I'm not talking about FACTS, but I'm talking about the frequently asked questions that you've been approached and that you may expect at town meeting. And maybe if somebody is watching this particular program, they go, oh, I was going to ask that. And it could be one less question, because we know that town meeting, depending on what the article issue, folks like to get up and if they're passionate, like you said, or sentimental about a particular issue. You know what, if you can at least give them the information beforehand, it's one less question for those folks who might have other questions.
Well, I think from my point of view, the people that have spoken to me and people that I've spoken with, the question goes back to what I had mentioned before in terms of what is the future of that school. And again, it's something that we're really beginning to dig into right now. Pretty much all the options are on the table right now. I would really be doing the viewers a disservice if I tried to identify one or two of them at this point.
Okay.
However, we will go through, again, very diligently, very methodically, and we will make it won't be that committee's decision. We will make a presentation, a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen, hopefully sooner than later, but not too soon, as to what we believe the future should be. And so stay tuned on that. And our meetings, the meetings of the reuse committee are like every meeting, a public meeting, open to anyone who wishes to attend. I'm hopeful that we'll have another one within the next few weeks or so, and that will be announced at a selectmen's meeting, and anyone is welcome to come. And actually, we invite participation, we invite input. It's the people's building, and the people should be able to, if they so choose, to give their input.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point, Mike. Of course, you know that the district has had a Q&A, right? So I think just last night they had their meeting at the high school.
They did recently have some.
And they've had a couple. So most of the questions have been directed to them on that. So I would like to say something, if that's okay. That's outside of the ballpark.
That's why you're here.
Yeah, okay. But there was some. We just found out the other day that there's problems up at the playground up at the Indian Head. Okay.
Okay.
So I talked to Bob Hayes. I've talked to our representatives Mike Jones and Chris Howard, and what I just found out that apparently it needs some repairs. So we're going to see if we can either repair it or maybe put together an article to replace. We're not certain either way. I'm not guaranteeing anything, but I would like to guarantee that an article will be written and set up in May after we work out what we think what we can do, the right direction on this. And if the article passes for the town, we should hopefully have something built either July or August and ready for September.
Very nice.
Okay, so we're not slackers here. We're definitely on top of this. I appreciate the person who told me this, and we're working on it, Kevin. So we understand the needs. I know we might get some heat from some people out there who say, well, what about Chromebooks? You need Chromebooks. What about full-day kindergarten? You need full-day kindergarten. And we're not saying we don't need those things, but common sense says that your priorities move around as the situation moves around, and it makes sense to have a playground there. We were all kids, right? You know what that's like you lived for recess, right? Those kids live for recess,
Absolutely.
and we should try to make it easy for them. Otherwise, they'll be throwing rocks at each other in the playground. Hopefully not that. Yeah, right. So
Can't have that these
So
days.
this makes sense as long as it's a reasonable cost and something that we think we can do.
Sure.
That's the way we're moving. So my point is that we'll look to put something in front of people in May. It'll be voted on, and we'll see where we go from there.
I know we're talking primarily about moving children out of the Maquan and the Maquan article and the $550,000 that are going to be expended to move some of these kids around. I'm sure there are other articles on this that you want to probably touch upon. What would those be, Mike?
Well, there are 2 additional articles, and then as I mentioned, by and large, these are housekeeping articles.
Okay.
Article 2 addresses a shortfall in the transfer station budget, which is part of the Board of Health budget. And primarily the driver of that is the fact that, and the town of Hanson is not alone in this, it's actually not only every town, every community in Massachusetts, but it's pretty much every community across the United States that participates in a recycling program. Some people may be aware of the fact that the vast majority of our recycling goes to China, or at least it used to. And most recently, the Chinese government has said that they're no longer going to accept the majority of our recycling, and a lot of that actually, oddly enough, has to do, they claim that it has to do with the fact that the recycling that we send over there is dirty, it's not cleaned. Okay. So as a result of that, the local haulers, the local places where the haulers would bring the recycling have had to up their costs that they're obviously passing on to us because as China took over the vast majority of our recycling, the amount of locations, the amount of options here in the United States dwindled. So we saw a rather significant spike in the cost for our recycling to be taken. We are very, very actively looking at alternatives going forward, whether that be to talk with the current hauler and see if we can negotiate something down. There was a clause in the contract and in a lot of people's contracts that allowed an escalation in a unexpected sort of dramatic event like this. So we are working with Matt Tennis, who is really carrying the ball on this. He's our health agent in trying to figure out the long-term solution for this. This is, as was said at the FinCom meeting Tuesday night, this is more or less a Band-Aid right now, to be quite honest, because it's not something, if we choose to go in a different direction, if we choose a different method of taking care of this, it's not something that can happen overnight, so we need to keep what we have in place. Again, these are monies that are not coming from the taxpayers. These are monies from the retained earnings from the recycling program. So we're looking for approximately $40-some-odd thousand. There we are, $41,869. Again, this is a transfer of funds. We are not raising, appropriating, not adding anything to the tax burden for the people of Hanson.
Good news.
It's just, in a sense, it's sort of a bookkeeping thing. However, it is dwindling. It will be drawing down on their reserves. So it's not a sustainable approach going forward unless we are able to, again, make some rather dramatic changes in terms of the costing, the methods in which we do use going forward.
You said there was a second article.
Yes.
Second article. It was 3 altogether, but there were 2 additional.
Yes, and that one is quite simply housekeeping. There are 3 portions to that. The first of which is we're asking for approximately $19,000 to be transferred from our uninsurance account. We have excess money in the insurance account as we project uninsurance account, the unemployment insurance, account. We project going forward that we're going to have an excess in that, a surplus. So we are transferring or requesting to transfer that amount of money to the legal account line, and that is particularly, it's going to be out of whack because we engaged the services of an attorney when we sold several tax title properties. What we actually realized from that sale was approximately $170,000. So for the sake of needing to spend, again, money that's already been allocated or already raised, for the sake of spending the $19,000 on the attorney, it's at 17.
Sorry.
We actually realized a rather significant profit of about $170,000, a one-time profit, and also we've put those particular properties back on the tax roll, so we'll be able to at least get some sort of revenue from them going forward. The next item on that is we're asking to transfer $20,000 from the planning board salary line to the planning board expense line. And what that basically is we had lost to actually another agency, our longtime town planner. She was the town planner / conservation officer. We had lost her to someone else. So in the interim, we're trying to decide how we want to move forward with that particular position, whether it's going to be full-time, whether we want to roll in some additional duties, so on and so forth. But in the meantime, we've engaged the services of a local woman who comes with the expertise of not only the construction side, but she's also an attorney. But all that being said, we retained her under a personnel contract. She is a vended consultant, so technically she's not an employee. And for us to legally pay her, we have to pay her out of the expense line. So we've taken the money that was already allocated for that position, or we're asking to take it out of salaries, put it in expenses so we can legally fulfill our obligations.
And we do that for contractors too, Mike, or no?
Yes.
So vendor and contractors can't be paid as employees, is what you're saying? For
yes, they don't come out of salary lines, they come out of expense lines.
And then there's a third item, Mike, right?
Yeah, the third item is simply we're looking to take $25,000 from, we actually had one or two less students go to the Norfolk Aggie this year, so we had some obviously extra money in the tuition line. We're looking to transfer $25,000 to the highway salary line, and basically what that is I'm sure everyone has had the pleasure of going through the intersection of Winter Street and Liberty, and has experienced the gas work that's being done there. Well, we found it was expedient to have a highway employee there at all times, and it was very valuable in a couple of circumstances where they hit either a water line or a gas line or an electric line. Right. But all that being said, that was overtime. It's money that we did not have in the budget, but it's money that we have asked the gas company for, and the gas company will pay us that money. However, we're not sure when it will come in, so we want to make sure that we don't overexpend that line.
So we pay up front and then they'll reimburse
exactly.
us.
We got less than 2 minutes left.
We
really went through it.
That total amount for that article, by the way, Article 3 is $62,800 adjustment, total adjustment.
Okay. I'm going to give you 30 seconds, gentlemen. Well, either one of you, maybe Jim, you could do it, just to kind of look into the camera and tell folks why it's important. They show up at the middle school, Hanson Middle School, at 7:30 on February 5th.
Thank you, Kevin. I do really think it's very important. We actually need a quorum in order to do these legally, so that's number one. But number two, many people in our town grew up in this town, and they're part of Maquan School. So this is a historical event that we're kind of taking part on, and I encourage all people to come out and take part in the government. I don't anticipate it being too long, because I know people work for a living and so forth, so on. But I encourage you to come. These are three very important articles. We need them to move our town business forward. The town of Hanson, like Mike said, is in excellent shape financially, and we're moving even better shape financially with some of these moves. So take part in your government, please, and step up and help us out so that we don't have to start making phone calls if we don't have a quorum on that night. We did that last time, if I'm not mistaken.
That's correct.
And we really need the right amount. We need all the amount of people. Everybody come out as long as you can, please. 7:30, Hanson Middle School. And again, hopefully it should only be about an hour. I think Sean Keeley is going to be moderator on it. Great man, nice man. So we should move very quickly on these items. We'll stick to topic and get our town business done.
Gentlemen, I want to thank you both for coming in and addressing town meeting and the issues that'll be beyond the warrant, the articles. And I want to thank you for tuning in. Remember, a program like Municipal Focus, we have other programs like Bring It On and Crosstalk, and what we try to do is address the issues that are happening in the two communities we serve, both Whitman and Hanson. And if you have a topic that you want to hear discussed, you could just send an email, ktocci@whca.tv or info@whca.tv, and we will work behind the scenes to get that program put together and here on one of our access channels. So until next time, have yourself a great day.